Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is likely to dominate the EU leaders' summit here in Brussels. While several EU nations say they can't afford a complete embargo on Russian oil, Hungary is the only one still blocking it. That means Orbán holds the fate of the much-delayed sanctions package in his hands, weeks after it was proposed.
We are addressing our dependency on Russian oil, and let's be clear, it will not be easy, because some member states are strongly dependent on Russian oil, but we simply have to do it.
Hungary is one of those EU members. The EU Commission has now watered down its proposal to get the Central European country on side. Only Russian oil transported by sea would be targeted. That's two-thirds of the EU's oil supplies from Russia, and pipeline gas would be excluded, something which would greatly benefit landlocked Hungary. But that's not enough for the country. Budapest wants 800 million euros from the EU to adapt its refineries. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly urged EU leaders to finally agree on an embargo on all Russian energy. Putting pressure on Russia is a matter of saving lives. Every day of procrastination, weakness, disputes or proposals to pacify the aggressor at the expense of the victim means more Ukrainians being killed. EU leaders are expected to express solidarity with Ukraine, promise more financial support and address global food shortages due to the war. But for now, it's not clear they'll be able to meet Zelensky's needs and break the deadlock with Hungary.
DW Brussels Bureau Chief Alexandra von Namen joins me now. Alexandra, we just heard it there. The EU Commission is watering down its proposal and has signaled it will only embargo oil transported by sea, allowing Hungary to still receive oil via its pipeline. How much sense does that make?
Well, when we consider, Michael, that members of the European Union pay up to 800 million euros every day for Russian energy supplies, that is important to try to phase out Russian oil deliveries to what extent it's possible, at least according to many diplomats here. They are saying it's better to have such an oil embargo than to have nothing at all, because as we just heard in the report, oil delivery shipments coming into the European Union amount to two-thirds of all Russian oil delivered to the European Union. And now we are hearing from our sources here in Brussels that there will be able tonight to agree in principle on this ban.
I can almost hear some of our viewers, Alexandra, asking, why does Hungary have so much power over the bloc? What does this mean for the unity and integrity of the bloc?
Well, it's of course not a good sign to have Hungary, but also other nations saying, well, we are so concerned about our energy security that we are not ready to ban Russian oil altogether. However, we have to remind our viewers that that's how things work in the European Union, that you need all member states on board when it comes to such important decisions, because they want to be united, they want to show this unity, and sometimes it means that you have to make compromises to get the deal done.
The two-day summit will also discuss defense investments and a plan to rebuild Ukraine. What more can you tell us about that?
We expect the EU leaders to agree to provide Ukraine with 9 billion euros in 2022 to help the country pay the bills, pay the payments to state workers, etc. This is very important for Ukraine, so the state can still function. Then, of course, they will be talking about defense, because this discussion has been going for quite a while now, that the European Union and its member states, they don't want to be so dependent on the military capabilities provided by the US. So they want to be less dependent. They want to see where they have to invest more money, how they maybe can procure military equipment together. This is on the agenda as well. However, we do not expect any decisions there.
Many thanks as always. DW Brussels Bureau Chief Alexandra von Namen. The outcome of this EU leaders' meeting is being closely observed in Ukraine. We are now joined by Daniel Bilak. He is a Canadian lawyer living in Ukraine. In the past, he's worked as the chief investment advisor to the Prime Minister of Ukraine. Now he is part of Kyiv's Territorial Defense Forces. That's quite a biography there. Tell us about the developing situation on the ground now and a little about your role in the Territorial Defense Forces.
Thanks for having me. I thought your reporter Rebecca did a very good summary. The only thing I would be concerned about is to paint with too broad a brush. I think you need to paint with paintbrushes and not rollers when you talk about the East. Severodonetsk is an important place, but it's nowhere near. It doesn't have anywhere near the military and strategic importance for the outcome in the war in the Donetsk. It's largely, as she pointed out, a political desire, because it means that they will have finally taken at least Luhansk Oblast. They still have not taken all of Donetsk Oblast, and as you know, we pushed them out of Kharkiv, and they are being held in the south. I think, though, the point that she made about the weapons, we're being outgunned 20-1 out in the east, and we're still holding them back. They're not advancing anywhere near as quickly as they thought they would, and the cry for help is real. We need those MLRS systems, the multi-launch rocket systems that can be a real game changer in turning the tide in this war. And it also points to the fact that we've held them is your question about territorial defense. This is a new way of waging war for Ukraine, where you have the concept of total resistance, where everybody in society is involved in some way in beating back the enemy. It's not just the army that's fighting. And that was the reason that I joined, was that I didn't see any reason why somebody had to defend my home and my family for me. Where I felt a very strong obligation, as did the members of my community and the villages where I live, and others that joined up to defend the country against naked evil, as we've seen.
You talk, sir, about defending the country from naked evil. Just again, very quickly, a little bit about your role in the Territorial Defense Forces.
Yeah, I helped with the organization of the voluntary units. There's different aspects of territorial defense. At the community level, there are voluntary units which are subordinate to battalions of the Territorial Defense Forces. Territorial Defense Forces are a completely different branch of the military. They're made up of people like me, like you, who have probably no military or significant military experience, but feel they want to defend their country.
So what do you do specifically?
I'm not a frontline soldier, as most of the territorial defense units have not been, although about half of them now are on the front lines. I have helped with logistics. I've helped with kitting out my battalion and another battalion with body armor and helmets. And I'm an advisor to the military administration, the head of the military administration in my region.
You say that Russia is not advancing as quickly as they would hope, but all reports indicate that Kyiv is losing a lot of ground in the Donbass. What's the most pressing tactical challenge Ukrainian forces need to overcome to change the current situation?
It's the heavy weapons that we keep getting promised that are on their way. They're starting to come. I mean, I think the 155 millimeter howitzers that we received from the U.S. and other NATO countries, that's already having an impact on the battlefield. It would be great for Germany to step up with the Gepard artillery that has been promised. We're now supposed to get it in July. That's a bit late, to be honest with you. But we need to have those MLRS systems, and if we have them in sufficient quantity, this war will be shortened. Frankly, Michael, how long this war takes and the final outcome is really largely dependent on how our allies are able to step up and help us. We will win. We have to win. We have no choice. Otherwise, we will be annihilated as a people. I mean, that's clear. This is a war of genocide. And the question is, how long will that take and at what cost? And the answers to those questions lie in the capitals of Europe and at the EU summit.
And perhaps, as you put it, in the firepower, firepower, firepower. That's the refrain we've been hearing for weeks
100%.
now. EU leaders are scheduled to meet today to discuss EU defense amid Russia's aggression against Ukraine, of course. Where should the bloc invest to strengthen defense?
Well, look, I think that the EU needs, I think we're at a crossroads, a historical crossroads in the development of global security, and certainly the EU and the Euro-Atlantic security architecture is key to that. But it's also the Euro-Atlantic security and economic architecture. And now Ukraine has to be a fundamental part of that. It's absurd not to have Ukraine, both in NATO and in the EU. For the last 8 years, we've been dying for the liberal democratic values that the EU professes to expound, and nobody else has done that. The whole notion of the sanctity of life, the dignity of the individual, and the rule of law and the freedom of choice. Those are not values shared by the enemy, by President Putin. Those are values that we have shown in spades, and those are the bedrock values of the EU. And the fact that the EU is paying Putin 1.5 billion euros a day for petroleum is really they're financing state terrorism. And to date, we have had maybe €1.5 billion given to us in assistance. So the EU needs to invest in Ukraine, in the reconstruction, in infrastructure, energy, technology, but it also needs to invest in itself, which means Ukraine as an integral part of the EU, not in some halfway house that's been thought up by some leaders.
Daniel Bilak, you have made your message loud and clear. Many, many thanks from Kyiv's Territorial Defense Forces. That's Daniel Bilak again. Many thanks. Here's a quick look at some of the other stories making news around the world at this hour. Germany's major parties have agreed to increase defense funding in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February. Chancellor Olaf Scholz said he wanted €100 billion to better equip Germany's armed forces, which have suffered from lack of investment. The new deal gets around strict budget rules and helps to meet NATO spending goals.